Hello folks, I'm Andy Simons, Director at KSS, and I'm going to give you a bit of a commentary from our perspective on artificial intelligence. This is a speech I gave at the excellent Experiology Stadium Conference late last year, and we thought we might just as well put it on the web to give it a wider audience. So off we go. Well, where did it all start? From my perspective, I was a big sci-fi fan, and Asimov predicted robots and the problems they might cause as early as 1950 with the 3 laws of robotics, which of course have featured very heavily since in most aspects of AI as a cinematic threat. As for foresight, well, Alan Turing, genius as we know, was far more than just breaking the Enigma code. He reckoned that there was no such comfort he could offer that any human characteristic could never be imitated by a machine. Again, 1951, incredible. So over the years, cinema and popular culture has touched on the potential threat that we all, I think, are feeling much more acutely now of AI, and it features in many, many films. Obviously, it's usually takes the form of a threatening humanoid robot with overdeveloped AI capabilities. But as a general rule, it doesn't tend to end well for the humans. Going right back, the first computer that thought it was potentially superior to human and we were a bit of an irrelevance was, of course, HAL in 2001 Space Odyssey. Again, look at the date, incredible foresight. That's before we even landed on the moon, that film. And throughout the decades, we've looked at the potential issues that over-intelligent and machines taking over mindsets, with a very few exceptions where they're benign, such as WALL-E, they tend to be quite threatening, quietly, insidiously threatening. So a fascinating genre of background there to leading up to where we are now. So we all think we understand AI as a thing, but it's the speed at which it's suddenly taking us over, even within the last calendar year. From mentioning maybe once a week, I think we probably see it in the news daily now. So what's causing this acceleration? Well, we look at it as the 7 waves. The first wave were almost a century apart, and then the centuries became half centuries and quarter centuries, as electricity came in the 3rd wave, petrochemicals and aviation and space came in the 4th wave, and then 5th wave, digital, in a very compressed time span, just the last 20 years. 6th wave was even 2020 to present, and now we're seeing an almost exponential vertical acceleration in the development of artificial intelligence. In fact, so fast we can't even really keep pace with it. And it's that out of control sense of evolution that I think troubles us. Troubles us to the extent that we don't know who's using AI in a threatening manner, and it was very strange to see last year that the collective Western intelligence agencies all came out and publicly stated that AI is a cyber threat, and they were particularly directed at commercial threats. And they warned the business world to generally secure business development, secure products, secure partnerships, and therefore secure your growth. Easy to say, a little bit harder to do. Let's bring it back to our world then, put background to one side and just look at it from the perspective of KSS and our business in architecture, interior design and graphics, and what it means to us now. Well, from the graphics side, it's quite strange how quickly it's potentially overtaking what we do. This is an entry into the Sony World Photography Awards, and it won it. And the German artist Boris Elgertsen actually admitted on stage that it was AI generated, not his own work, and therefore he refused to accept the award. Put the world into shock. They had no idea. So how do we stop that? Well, do we go right back to analog? Do we actually have to evidence a manual film negative to show that the piece of digital art was in fact genuine photography? We shall see. In the pure world of digital art competition, not photography, again it happened. An AI generated image won first place at the Colorado State Fair, and It was a beautiful piece of work, but it was entirely AI generated, and therefore the award was refused again. This was using Midjourney. Having said that, it took the artist 80 hours to compose and create and cut and paste and Photoshop the image. So is that an artistic process in the world of digital art? You could say it is. So how does it work then? AI in graphics. Well, it's just a question of an iterative process with a very clever database that is searching every single image available on the web. Unbelievable processing power. So what we do is we put together a set of random but selected images that sum up collectively what it is we're trying the AI image to produce, to interpret. An algorithm uses two separate neural networks to analyze the images. The first network generates images based on the curated set to say, how about this? How about that? And the second network compares those to the sample images and makes a judgment as to whether they're on tune or out of tune, until ultimately this cyclic process gets to the point where there's a range of images that pass the test of being sufficiently close to the original suggested set. Now, that gives you an amazing image, and who's using it? Well, 42% of architectural practices say they're using AI in some form. Well, we think it's a lot more than that. We think 42% have admitted it, and there's a much higher percentage that haven't admitted it, or in fact their staff are using it and they don't even know. But it's certainly more than 42 in our view. It's not a bad thing, it's just a commentary. So these are the AI programs that are out there now as a snapshot that we are aware of, and these are the ones that we are currently using. Two versions of these to note. You can have a paid subscription, or you can take the free version. Word of warning, if you're using a free version of, say, Midjourney, and you get an image out of it, you do not own the copyright. You have to pay the subscription to have the copyright of the image you've created. So, within the world of graphic design for us, this is an interesting tool. It is a good sort of ideas generator. It tends to take some ideas we originally have, as we've said, and develop them further into iterative versions of that. And it can be quite fun. I don't think to date we've actually used an AI image directly that's been created in a presentation. It's more an ideas generator. Because there are some limitations in AI, and we've noted them here in a few bullet points. The AI cannot fully understand the full breadth of a client's needs. It's not creative and original. It's working with interpretive versions of the first message or first sample images that you give it. So it's only ever working within the bounds you set with it. It's not particularly emotionally intelligent. It's not particularly flexible and adaptable, as mentioned above. And it certainly doesn't have attention to detail. It tends to skip over things in its speed. Not particularly collaborative. And the AI to date can't go to the pub and build a long-lasting relationship with a client or have a deeper understanding of the client's business. It may well happen, though. Things are moving so fast. All of these attributes may well be within the powers of AI, but not there quite yet. So if you were to pro and con this, I won't read these out, but it's more about the intuitive feel of what it does versus the incredible speed of what it does. There's a quality to the human process. But as a tool for taking established images and messing with them and increasing their scope, it's incredible. This, for example, is a photograph of the Amex Stadium, and we set a field of view to the wider box and asked a generative fill program to basically expand it left and right. And in 10 seconds, with just that prompt, it imagined the context of the landscape and the field of poppies left and right. Here we gave it this particular photograph of the Anfield Stadium. the main west stand and said, imagine how this picture would expand to the box we've shown. Bang, it did so. It even understood that the person there walking had legs that needed completing. It took the same sort of blurry feel to the people, added people walking with flags. An incredible expansion. Expanded the sky, the works. Quite impressive. Again, just 30 seconds. It will, for CGIs, give us crowds. Crowds are always a tricky one. Crowds, particularly in the right shirts, being viewed from the front or back, are always painstaking things. They don't affect the architectural design that you've created. They're just part of the setting to give it atmosphere, but it can take an awfully long time. Here, this was a prompt. 30 seconds, give me a zoomed-in crowd of Liverpool fans. And then bang, 30 seconds, you got them from the front, from the back, from the side. Extremely useful tool. However, beware, it doesn't know every club. And you may well know that Southampton fans wear red and white and are not called Sitland. So be sure you check the output you're being given. Now, on the architectural side, you could put a prompt in such as rammed earth futuristic design, and in 30 seconds only, Midjourney, in this case, would come up with images such as this, which if you're trying to imagineer or to explain to a client what a rammed earth organic building as a house or any other building might look like as a mood for a theme board, it's an incredibly powerful tool. Equally, for example, futuristic cyber reception interior would give you prompt images such as this in just 30 seconds. Stadium seating, of course, is very much our bag. This is a Nowie style stadium seat, and if we said make it more futuristic, then instantly a whole range of ideas pops out. Not all credible, of course, but one of them may be an interesting prompt. You can ask it to be completely 100% recycled, which of course the nirvana, the ultimate holy grail of any product in architecture or product design. And again, be wary of what it might suggest. The 100% spinach chair on the left is clearly recyclable, but probably not entirely practical. On sketch development, it's a very powerful tool. The sketch on the left-hand side is something from one of my co-directors, Lee, created for a cricket development, and we asked it to reinterpret that with particular style and prompt cues, and it did so in just 20 seconds. We then asked it to tweak those prompts, and it kept reimagining that sketch in the sketch style with pencil and colour wash to a variety of layouts. Quite powerful, although need to be wary. It's supposed to be a cricket stadium, and so clearly Midjourney doesn't understand what a cricket pitch looks like. Again, buyer beware. Another bit of fun, we crumpled out a piece of paper and said, okay, assume this crumpled piece of paper was an architectural wooden model in the style of Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, and then wallop. 20 seconds later, a very credible image of an actual physical model. I think this is particularly clever in that interpretation into a cardboard model as a piece of graphics. Similarly, in something called Stable Diffusion, we asked just from this sketch to render this as a stadium in a big city context. 20 seconds later, we had that. Now, if you were testing conceptual ideas, either internally or with a client, this is an incredibly powerful way to determine whether a particular form or shape would actually fit your context or your client's ambitions. So, workflow acceleration, possibly, definitely, an AI advantage from your big idea, input into AI through various methods as word prompts or image prompts, gives this iterative sketch visual design option testing, which you can subsequently tweak to ultimately yield a final visual which you have some affinity for. But on the question of beware, these are two images. One was created using Midjourney in just 30 seconds. The other was a CGI that was created painstakingly over about 3 weeks from a 3-month competition design process. Well, the one on the left is 30 seconds and the one on the right was 2.5 weeks of CGI. I think you can see, you start to learn, you can see some of the attributes to a CGI image. It's all rather perfect. You always get a sunburst, you always get a perfect sky, and you always get a complete lack of detail. If you'll notice behind that facade, there is actually no stadium in the bowl. The trees are always of a certain type. It gets to the point where you do tend to spot an AI image when you've looked at them enough times. They lack the subtlety and the depth, but still very impressive. It's worth noting that the CGI on the right-hand side that we created was based on a massively detailed 3D program, and therefore it was a true CGI of an actual design. So this is the sort of complexity that the CGI artist is working with in the truth of a built form beneath the skin. Now, MEP design, Stable Diffusion is definitely not there yet, being essentially a graphics program. You may spot the obvious plumbing error, should we say, between the hot and the cold ductwork here. But rest assured, the threading of combined MEP surfaces through particular pathways, horizontal and vertical, is coming. You ascribe the appropriate attributes, separation, mounting heights, fixing systems to a basic MEP layout and ask it to put it through vertical rises and ceiling voids without clashes, without overlaps. I think we're going to find that AI is going to start to be able to do this particularly well. Right, okay, shout out here to Spanish company Architectures for the world of residential design, which is an aspect of what we do, which is obviously very different to the super complexity of stadium designs. There are set rules for residential design about separation, spacings between buildings, spacings between buildings street to street, between habitable rooms and non-habitable rooms, and you could plug in to a program a particular plot and a set of requirements of 1 or 2 bedroom flats. Various, you could do the dead end distances to the staircases, put in the whole parameters, and it can incredibly quickly generate a range of planning options as to how you might use that site. If you put that into a program from the US, such as SWAP, SWAPP, then that scalar program can take your residential plan, take it over a number of floors, even plan it out to the detail we're seeing here in both plan and section, detail your stairs, and even your plumbing and tile your walls. So given the right amount of inputs, there are some very powerful AI programs out there. But of course, the whole ownership, verification, and professional indemnity for taking something such as this and actually going to use it directly in a construction contract is a different world, and is to be explored and resolved before you ever take that step. So, intellectual property, that's the point. And let's take this back to the graphics situation. When you go put in those parameters and source an image, and let's say the top row is the massive database that the AI program is searching from, and the black image at the bottom is the one you finally select. You need to be careful about the verification. It just may be that the final image you choose is still identical to a source image. You wouldn't know it. You presume it's a mishmash, maxed up version of so many images it sort of doesn't matter, and the copyright's lost in the mix. But potentially your chosen image may be unchanged, and you may well have a copyright discussion to be had with the original artist of that image, but you wouldn't know it. So again, there's a risk inherent in that. So overall pros and cons of this process in architecture. Is it a threat to jobs in the long term? At the moment, architecture, I think, is thankfully, just too complex and too involved to be a job threat at this moment. But certainly there are aspects of what AI does that will increase our efficiency. Certainly effective in a wide and fast data acquisition, and it may improve some of aspects of our workflow in being a very vast and powerful suggestive tool. Ethics and plagiarism, you can see here on the right hand side, they remain direct risks, and as stated, it's hard to know whether you are actually breaking the rules or not when you don't have should we say access to the source path of where the data you're taking, even though you think you've got copyright for it because you paid for it through subscription, is actually yours to use. So, to conclude, architecture has always been 5% inspiration and 95% perspiration, and we'd like to think that despite AI, we will still be able to hold on to that precious first few weeks and months where we really are inspiring ourselves and our client with original thought. I don't know whether AI will ever meet the engineering perfection as it blends both art, architecture, and the technicality of, say, a dome such as this, but maybe it will. It's hard to know then, with the rise of AI, whether we are a bastion, seawall holding back the tsunami of AI successfully or not, or whether in fact we're all just canutes kidding ourselves that we will ever stop the waves from crashing over us. We shall see. Thank you for listening. Hope that's interesting. Get in touch if you want to talk about it more.